Today we'll be doing Gauss's theorem, and this is a chapter which is very much conceptual, and it is very much important to understand the rest part of electrostatics. We have already completed Coulomb's law, electric field, dipole, and all this. I have even done a class on entrance. Now this is the class, or this is the concept which requires a lot of attention. Okay, so I'll ask you to sit with your class book and write whatever I'm writing on the board, and that's how you can actually understand the concept of this chapter. Alright, so let's start with Gauss's theorem. Before we start the Gauss's theorem, actually, we have to understand few concepts. You have here, the first thing I have written here is area vector. Now, you have to understand that till today, you were thinking that area is a scalar quantity, right? In lower classes, you had a chapter in mathematics called mensuration, and you had calculated a lot of different areas for a lot of different geometrical shapes. But today, when we think about electrostatics, when we think about the concept of charges, I mean, now we are going into distribution of charge. So that for that purpose, we have to understand, or we have to think area as a vector quantity, not as a scalar. Now, why it is so? Suppose I have my palm here, right? If this is an area, alright, if this is an area, then the way I am pointing it, the way I am showing it to you, this is an orientation, this is a particular position. But if I turn my palm like this, then the area, the orientation of this area is now has changed. It is not like this, it is now like this. Alright, so if I attach a unit vector, say this pen here, is this the unit vector that I have shown here? So try to imagine if this is the unit vector, and when I am placing my hand like this, it is showing you a particular direction, and if I am turning it like this, then another direction is being visualized, because this orientation and this orientation is not the same. Now why it is not the same? Because of the reason that when we are talking about a distribution of charge, the how we can actually place the charge on a particular area, on a surface or somewhere, that is very important. That orientation of charge placing is very important, and that's why area is a vector quantity. Please understand, these things are not written in any kind of book. Okay, so we have to understand, we have to visualize what we are doing. So this is the factor I have drawn. Please draw this in your classwork. This is the area, the orientation of this area is through this unit vector eta cap, and this is the magnitude of the area which you had calculated in lower classes in mensuration. You calculated the magnitude. Alright, and now we are representing the expression of area vector, which is like this: dA is equal to dA and eta cap. This is the directional aspect of area vector. Alright, okay, now after this the unit will be meter square, the same thing that we had before. Now we have a very important concept called solid angle. Okay, and this concept is very solid, I am telling you. So what is there? The solid angle. Now what is a solid angle? What is an angle actually? In trigonometry, in lower classes you had a different aspect of the concept of angle. But when we started in higher classes, what was angle? In trigonometry, it suggested that angle is the segment or the an intersection which an arc makes with the center of that arc. That means if we have an arc like this, suppose, then whatever portion it is showing with respect to the center, that is called an angle. This is the practical definition of angle. Now when we come to solid angle, like I have mentioned here, please draw this. We have a section where we have a particular surface, the end surface, which is dA, and the direction, the unit vector of dA is this one, this arrow. All right. Now I want to know what is solid angle. Now what is solid angle? Solid angle is which is angle which an area subtends to a point or the center. Try to understand. This was arc and this is now an area. This is very important. I'm telling you, please understand this concept. An area is subtending an angle with this certain point or the center. Like here, this is not the center of this kind of figure, of course, but this point here we can actually see that d omega, which is called the elementary solid angle or the magnitude, how we represent omega is the example, like we represent angle by theta, beta and all of things. Omega is practically the expression for the solid angle which an area is subtending. Now this area dA, okay, it is not actually subtending any angle at the center. Now why? Because it is not symmetric. These two lines, they are not symmetric with respect to this point. So what I have to do? I have to take a projection which will be symmetric with respect to this point. It has to be symmetric. So we are taking a projection this way, and when we are taking the projection here, this black one, this black area, there it is having a unit vector which is r cap, which is directed like this, and this angle is theta. So when we take the projection of vector, what was that? If A is the vector, the projection was A cos theta. So dA is the vector, the projection is dA cos theta, and now it is symmetric to this. So if I understand that this is the angle, this is the solid angle, then what is that? D omega equals to dA cos theta by r square, because it is the angle the area is subtending at a center. All right, and this is the radius. So total area divided by the radius square, because r square means area, so area will get cancelled, and finally the dimension will remain as angle. That is how we have to we had visualized. Great. So dA cos theta by r square. So dA cos theta is the projection of dA. So we are writing dA dot r cap. This r cap, dA dot r cap by r square is the expression of the solid angle. The unit is steradian. Angle was radian, and this is steradian. Solid angle, so steradian. This way we visualize about the solid angle. Great. So now we will move into the next portion, which is electric flux. Okay, so I hope you have understood this, because if you have understood this, then only we can move into another new concept you have never heard about this, that is electric flux. Alright, let's check it out. So now we will be doing the concept, we will be knowing the concept of new thing called electric flux. It's a new physical quantity which you never heard it before, but today you have to understand what is electric flux. Okay, why we are thinking about it. You see, actually when we think about the distribution of charge, it is very essential that we should understand that how these charges, whatever the electric field they are producing, or whatever the electric field they are developing in that particular space, how we can actually quantify. That is very important, how we can actually quantify the amount of electric field present in a particular space because of a distribution of charge. That concept actually led us to this thing. I mean, the Gauss, who actually thought of all this, he thought in this process that okay, I'm talking about charges, I'm placing charges where? I'm placing charges at a particular space, right? So when we are placing the charge and it is developing an electric field, so what is happening? Practically what is happening is that you have to think the quantity, the amount, the magnitude of electric field, and it is not like that E equals to 1 by 4 by epsilon naught q by r square. No, I have to understand. I told you the term quantify. So in order to quantify, what we have to do, that we have to choose a source. All right, we have to choose an area. You see, we have a unit vector associated with the area, and since the direction of the electric field is like this, so we can say the electric field vector is like this. So it is making certain angle, say theta. Alright, so what is electric flux? Draw this diagram in your classroom. I didn't erase this because the concept of area vector is very essential in order to know electric flux. So you see, this is an orientation, or this is a particular space by which we are, you know, we are surrounding an electric field. We are doing a kind of, you know, a periphery of electric field. Quantify, understand that. So in order to quantify electric field, what we are doing is simple. I mean, in higher classes, if you actually go in the higher classes and you take physics, then these things will come up with a different perception, because at that point of time you will come to know that we don't know in class 11, 12. It's called a portion of physics called vector space. Okay, and that vector space has a lot of more new operators that we do not have in these classes. So I'm not moving into that. I can explain this thing in a different way, but that will be very difficult for you to understand. Alright, so in this way, please imagine we have electric field, we want to quantify, so we are choosing a surface by which we can actually surround, we can actually keep a, you know, a periphery towards the electric field, and we can see how much electric field is present there. So that is the concept of electric flux, and electric flux is defined as the amount of electric field present by a confined surface which is enclosing a particular amount of charge. Until and unless you are enclosing the surface, enclosing the charge, you cannot quantify the total electric field, and it is defined. What is flux? We write phi E. Okay, we can also have magnetic flux. When we do electromagnetism or magnetism, we'll do this magnetic flux, that is similar, but that time we'll write phi B. B represents the magnetic induction. Alright, so you have hopefully heard about an extraordinary scientist named Tesla. Please, you know, nowadays if you want to search anything, you do Google. So ask Google that who is Tesla and what he did, what not. Alright, so apart from the, you know, the topic, I am just telling you a few info that will that those are very interesting, and you'll find it very interesting. Do Google it. Okay, Tesla, Tesla. Alright, so what is phi E? When we do electromagnetism, we'll talk about Tesla. Right now, we are not thinking, we are thinking about Gauss, Coulomb, these scientists. So phi E, what is that? It is called the line integral, or the closed integral of the electric field and the dot product of electric field and the area vector. Because how much electric field is associated in a particular area and what is the magnitude of area, if you multiply a dot product, will give you a magnitude which will quantify the amount of, or the extent of electric behavior in a particular enclosed surface. Alright, so this is the thing, or in a broader term we can write EDA cos theta. This part is very important because you have already understood that how we can define solid angle, and here is the projection of unit vector for area vector, and now it is the expression EDA cos theta. Even some people write DS, no issue, it's up to you. Since I am Arijit, I prefer DA. Alright, so this is the expression, this is the concept of electric flux, and now my dear student will move into the actual topic of Gauss's theorem. Okay, let's check it out. In order to tell you what is Gauss's theorem and what is the statement of Gauss's theorem, at first we have to understand that what is the necessity of Gauss's theorem. I was telling you that whenever we have a distribution of charge and we want to know the extent or the domination of electric field over a particular space or area or a domain or region, then we actually have to at first enclose those charges with a surface. So there is a question which usually comes in board exam, and they ask you what is Gaussian surface. Gaussian surface is an imaginary surface. You should write this. Gaussian surface is an imaginary surface which can enclose a particular amount of charges for a distribution of charge. So it is an imaginary surface. That means we have certain amount of charges present on a surface or a space or whatever, and then we are enclosing those charges by an imaginary surface. So if you have a line distribution of charge, then what you can do is that you can actually enclose that surface by a cylinder. If you have a point charge, then you can enclose that charge by either by cube, thinking about the symmetry, or you can actually enclose that charge using a sphere. So this way we can enclose a particular amount of charge, and now I am telling you what is Gauss's theorem. Gauss's theorem stated that the total electric flux associated with a Gaussian surface, try to understand. First we have to understand what is Gaussian surface. You know that already, I have already told you. Now it is telling that the total flux linked with a Gaussian surface is equal to closed integral of electric field and the area vector, the dot product, and that is further equal to the 1 by epsilon naught times 1 by epsilon naught times of the total charge enclosed. This total charge, summation q, in most of the textbooks in India, they don't mention summation q, they just mention q, but technically it is wrong. Okay, when we are talking about distribution of charges, we have to, whatever charge we have enclosed by our imaginary surface or Gaussian surface, total amount of that charge is the point of consideration. So it is 1 by epsilon naught times of the total charge enclosed by that imaginary or Gaussian surface. Okay, so we have a kind of pictorial representation of the Gauss's theorem, because we want to, I have to prove this. I won't accept, okay, this is the expression, I have to prove. So anyways, so we have what we have done, we have placed plus q charge at point O, draw this diagram, and then we are trying to find out the amount of extent of the quantifying the amount of electric field with a particular surface, which is dA, having the unit vector in this direction, and the electric field here is E, and for this plus q charge, so they are having an angle of theta, great, and this is the area, and this is the radius, and this is the solid angle which is being subtended by this particular area at the center or at the point O where the charge is placed. Okay, so let us prove what is Gauss's theorem. So what is that? The basically it is phi E is, actually we have to derive the expression through this one only. So what is electric field? It is a point charge. Try to understand. It is a point charge. Great. So if it is a point charge, then the first of all, E dA cos theta, it is the expression. If we expand this dot product, and then what we can write now, what is electric field? Electric field, if I take out, then it is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, okay, q by r square, because the distance is r here, the radius or what the surface is showing us, so this is this. So now after this we have dA cos theta, okay, so dA cos theta, fine, no issue. So this dA cos theta, and if I insert dA cos theta by r square. Do you remember what this is? This is what? This is solid angle. Great. So what is coming? You see, it's very simple. We have to just visualize. So this d omega. So from here, now what is d omega? What is the total angle subtended by a complete surface? It is like tell me, what is the total angle subtended by complete circumference? It is 2 pi. And when we talk about complete surface, the point is there, we have a complete surface, it is 4 pi steradian. Okay, that is called the total surface solid angle. So closed integral of this will give you 4 pi. So what is coming finally? We took only one charge, so I am writing q, I am not writing summation q. If we had more than a lot of charges, then we can write summation q even. So it will get cancelled, and we have proved the Gauss's theorem. The expression phi e is equal to total charge 1 by epsilon naught times of the total charge enclosed by the surface. Alright, so this is the representation of Gauss's theorem. Now we will deal with some particular cases where we can calculate electric field for different distribution of charges using Gauss's theorem. That will come now. Going to calculate electric field for a line distribution of charge, or in short what we call linear distribution of charge. Alright, so I have drawn the situation here. You can see there is a line where we have amount of charge which is distributed like this, and I have taken a positive charge. So obviously you can understand that when we are placing a positive charge, the direction of the electric field which will be generated due to this line distribution of charge will be like this. This is the direction of electric field. Okay, and now in order to imagine about a Gaussian surface, the imaginary surface, that whenever we have a kind of line distribution of charge, so we can surround it, we can enclose it by a cylinder, and we have done that. We have taken a cylinder of length L, we have taken a portion of the line charge. We have not we cannot enclose the whole thing, but we can enclose some portion of it, and we can identify what kind of electric field is present out there. Alright, we have to calculate the magnitude of E here, and here we have a radial vector, area vector here for this surface which is directed along this, and also we have a curved surface area which is like this, and that is also, let's say, dA. Now you see, then electric field and these two, there is another surface here. These two electric area vector and electric fields, they are 90 degrees, perpendicular to each other. So dot product is 0. But for the lateral surface, this curved surface of cylinder, we have electric field and area vector parallel. So for them the dot product is not 0. So we will be using Gauss's theorem. And what does Gauss's theorem suggest? It suggests that total flux linked is equal to closed integral of E dA. And since they are having an angle of 0 degree, they are parallel, so it will be equal to closed integral of EDA. So we are taking E out, and we have this thing. Alright, so according to Gauss's theorem, what is phi E? It is total charge 1 by epsilon naught times of the total charge. So I can write 1 by epsilon naught and total charge. Say total charge is Q. Alright, so that is equal to the electric field that we want to calculate, and the total surface integration of this lateral surface or the curved surface. So curved surface. So here, what is the total curved surface? We know from the concept of mensuration. We know what is that? It is 2 pi r L. Okay, where r is the radius of this cylinder. All right. So this is it. So if I now write E, what is E now? You can see the whole thing, which is Q by 2 pi epsilon naught, okay, R L. Now you see Q by L. What is Q by L? Total charge per length. The length we have enclosed, and that is equal to linear charge density, as we know from the previous chapter. So finally, what will be the expression for electric field? the expression will be lambda Q by L. Q and L, please don't confuse. Q by L is lambda, so the rest of the facts and figures will come. So 2 pi epsilon naught R, this is the expression for the electric field in order to, in case for the line distribution of charge or linear distribution of charge. Alright, so this way you have to show the derivation along with the things that I was telling you. You have to write those, that according to Gauss's theorem, Q phi is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times of total charge. All these you have to write in your words. This comes for 3 marks mostly in the board exam, and this is very important, so do practice this. Okay, so now we are into another very interesting and important topic. Electric field due to an infinite plane sheet of charge. That means we have an infinite plane sheet where we are having charges on the surface, and we want to know the electric field due to that kind of surface. So I have drawn the diagram. You can see this is the infinite plane sheet. These are the break lines because it is extended either way to infinity. So these are the charges which is present. A lot of positive charges are there, and obviously now the next question is that how we can enclose. So in order to enclose, suppose you have a sheet. Okay, if this is a sheet, so I mean, when you want to enclose this plane sheet of charge, then what we can do, we can imagine a Gaussian surface which will look like a cylinder, and we can enclose a certain portion of it. So that's exactly what we did. What we did, we have taken a Gaussian surface which is a cylindrical surface for this way and also for the back. Okay, the backward, which is drawn like this in the dotted line. Do copy this in your classwork. So for this positive charge, the electric field is directed like this, and the area vector is directed like this, and it is symmetric. I mean both way, both sides. So if I want to prove what is the electric field, so first we have to calculate the flux, and flux, you know, is the closed integral of E dot dA. And the angle between area vector and electric field is 0 degree here. You can understand they are parallel. So, and since we have enclosed it completely from the either side, so the total flux linked, the total flux is 2 into this whole thing, EDA. And you know, already done the dot product, cos 0 is 1, so vector signs are omitted. Alright, so this way we have this kind of expression now. Anyways, so let us now move. Now EDA, what is DA, and how we can calculate the whole thing and all. So here, when we want to know what is flux, the flux is 1 by epsilon naught times of the total charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface. Very good. So 1 by epsilon naught times of the total charge. I can clearly understand when I have done all this, the total surface integration of enclosing this surface, the area is dA and all. So I can write 2 into A. If this area is A, I have taken the vector. Or else you can write dA even, no issue. So what is E? E is, you can understand, Q by 2 epsilon naught dA. Now there is one interesting thing. Q by dA, charge per unit area. What does it mean? Charge per unit area means surface charge density, that is sigma. We already have covered this in previous chapters. So what is the final expression then? You have understood already. It is sigma by 2 epsilon naught. So this is the expression for the electric field due to a infinite plane sheet of charge. And please understand that this expression, this derivation is very important. It will be used a lot of times in other section. I mean, now we are arranging 2 parallel sheets like this, and these sheets In the previous case also, in this case also, they are non-conducting. Don't forget this. Please write non-conducting. Okay, draw this diagram. Now, interestingly, what we have? We have a sheet 1, plane sheet 2, which are parallel. They have carry positive charges, and we have to calculate the electric field. Now, this electric field is, since they are non-conducting surface, so obviously we can understand that there will be electric fields outside the system, I mean the system of these two parallel plane sheets, and even within the system, I mean within the plane sheets. So I have taken P1, P2 and P3 points where we will be calculating, and eventually you can understand the directions. For P1 the directions are like this, for P2 the directions are like this, and for P3, I mean the point within are like this. So if for points P1 or P2, can you understand? I mean, we don't know which one is greater, E1 is greater or E2 is greater. We have only the charge densities, sigma and 1 and sigma 2. So what is the net field? The net field will be, you can understand, since their directions are parallel, so it is E1 plus E2, and eventually just now we derived, that is, so 1 by 2 epsilon naught sigma 1 plus sigma 2. This is the expression for outside. I am again writing, sorry, outside. Outside the field is this. Okay, great, mark. What will be about inside? For point P, let's assume let that sigma 1 is greater than sigma 2. Alright, the fields are opposite, anti-parallel vectors, and they are opposite to each other. So what is the net field inside? Can you tell me? The direction opposite. So if sigma 1 is greater, so E1 is greater. I am taking the right positive as per the convention for physics, sign convention. So eventually, I need not to show you so many steps. You can easily write down 2 by epsilon naught and then sigma 1 minus sigma 2. This is the expression for the within the field. Alright, great. So eventually, can you understand one thing which is very important? And what is that? If sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2 equals to sigma, okay, so what is E out? You can tell me. It is sigma by epsilon naught, because this will become 2 sigma. And what is E inside? What is E inside? 0. Why? Because if sigma 1 and sigma 2 are equal, then this subtraction will give you 0. And now there is another factor. Suppose that one plate is having a positive charge and the other one. I am very sorry that you have to draw it again, but for me I can just change. But you have to draw. Please redraw. So if it is the case, now tell me the directions. What will be the case? This is positive charge, so E1 direction is correct. Great. And also, let's say that they are having similar charge densities, sigma and sigma. Previously it was sigma 1 and sigma 2. Now it is sigma and sigma. Okay. So this is fine. Now what about E2? You can eventually understand. E2 will be that side. Great. Now, here comes another thing, that since it is a positive charge, E1 will be directed away. But since it is a negative charge, E2 will be like this. Yes or no? Great. And here also the same thing will occur. The E1 will be away, but E2, the direction will reverse. Now you see, if you want to write the expression, since sigma and these two are equal, vectors was opposite, so we can say there is no net field here or net field here. Where is the field? It's here. Previously it was 0, but can you tell me let me write here. Please follow this. So these fields are zero. They are equal fields. They have equal charge distribution. Surface charge densities are equal. So they have opposite directions. So that this way they will get cancelled. There is no field outside, but there is a field inside. I can see. So what is E in? Tell me. What is sigma by 2 epsilon naught plus sigma by 2 epsilon naught? Great. Sigma by 2 epsilon naught for E1 and sigma by 2 epsilon naught for E2. So finally, the field inside is sigma by epsilon naught. I am telling you, these results, even these results, are very important for you to understand, because these results will be used in later on in this section of electrostatics, where we will understand what is capacitor and other things. Okay, the application part. These are very important. Okay, so do write all this. Do draw the diagram twice. You have to draw and understand this. I hope you are not having any trouble. All right. Now I will move into the spherical Gaussian surface. So I was telling you about the spherical shell. You can see the diagram. We have a spherical shell and the positive charge is distributed over the surface of it. And now we have drawn two surfaces. One is inside and one which is outside, and the radius is small r. So obviously you can understand the small r is greater than capital R, which is the radius of the spherical shell. Alright, so let us first think about the inside one. I have drawn a spherical boundary which is inside. Is it enclosing the charge? The answer is no. Here comes a very important conclusion about Gauss's theorem. Until and unless you have this imaginary surface which can actually, or which is actually enclosing a certain amount of charge, we cannot apply Gauss's theorem, or even there will be no quantity of electric field present there. So inside the spherical shell there is no electric field. Please understand, I am writing here, do not this diagram inside is 0, because we have not enclosed the charge. So now we have two things, and one is on the surface. I am coming to it, but the most important is that if we have a Gaussian surface which is enclosing the total charge and at a distance small r from the center, and we have a small elementary area which is dA, and the electric field is also here, which are parallel, so everything is fine. So what is the flux here for outside at point outside, at a point outside? What is that? So phi 1, let us say, outside, or phi out also can do. Anyways, so it is surface integral of EdA, which is EdA only. I mean, there is no other thing. So I can write E and total integral of D. Great. And this is equal to Q. If the total charge, this total charge is Q, then it is Q by epsilon naught, 1 by epsilon naught times of the total, and total surface area. Since it is a spherical boundary, we can only enclose a spherical shell with a spherical boundary only. So it is 4 pi r square. I mean, this one is 4 pi r square. Okay, the total surface integral. So what is E? You will understand, and you will be thinking, okay, why we are doing this? Because you already know. Yes, you know this expression, but remember, this expression previously was for a point charge. Now it is a distribution of charge. The total charge is Q. The total magnitude of the charge which is distributed over the spherical boundary is Q. It is not a point charge. Please identify this dissimilarity. Okay, these are very important concepts where we always have a tendency to do wrong or tendency to do errors. Anyways, so this is fine. Now what about the surface? I mean on the surface. So when it is on the surface, and we know on the surface we have a charge density, surface charge density. So on the surface, what I can write, you can do the same process. You will get 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by capital R square, because this boundary is up to capital R. Okay, but we can also have this thing, q is equal to sigma into what? 4 pi capital R square, because that boundary is this. So what will be the electric field just at the surface? Just at the surface. What is that? If I replace this, there is sigma, 4 pi will get cancelled. So what I am getting, a very interesting one, is this expression. And I am telling you, all of you, this is a very, very, very important conclusion. This is on the surface. You can see it is 1 by epsilon naught sigma capital R square by small r square, where small r is greater than capital R. And eventually, when we are calculating at this point here, can you see here, then it is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by R square. It looks very similar to that of the point charge, but it is not a point charge. Alright, so let us draw this result graphically. Okay, let's say this is the distance and this is the electric field, from distance from the center, of course. So what I can say, we can say that inside it is 0. So let me draw the graph. This graph is very important. Okay, so inside it is 0. Let's say this is capital R. So we are having a spike because we have this expression. Alright, great. And then E is inversely proportional to R square. So it will look like this. Okay, this will be the graph. Please understand this graph, please understand this concept. This will be very much important for the next chapter or next section of electrostatics, which is electric potential and potential energy. There also will be knowing this kind of concepts, and we'll be using these concepts in order to find out the potential for a spherical shell or other kind of charge distribution. Alright, so now I should tell you that I have concluded, I have completed the chapter which is Gauss's theorem, and it's now your turn. You see, from Gauss's theorem we can do a lot of problems. I will do a lot of problems after I finish the next section, that is electric potential. I have already completed Gauss's theorem. When these two sections are completed, I will definitely come up with a special class which is for the entrance. Okay, and for those entrance, we'll do a lot of problems from the numericals which came in the lot of exams like JEE Advanced, JEE Mains, and NEET or whatever. So then I'll show you a lot of interesting concepts to do the sum. Right now I'll be doing one problem based on Gauss's theorem, and then I will conclude this lesson. We have a problem. It is a problem which came in JEE Advanced, IIT, long back. At least 10, 11 years back. I think it was in 2009 or 10, something like that. I exactly don't remember the year, but this sum was very, very interesting to me at least. What they said, please you can draw the diagram and write down the problem. They said that three charges Q1, Q2 and Q3 are placed on the surfaces of three concentric spherical shells. Three charges Q1, Q2 and Q3 are placed on three concentric spherical shells of radii R1, R2R, of radii R, 2R and 3R respectively. R, 2R and 3R. You can see on the diagram. What they have asked, they have said another thing, that surface charge density of the outer surface of these spheres are equal. Surface charge densities are equal, and they have asked us to find out the ratio between Q1, Q2 and Q3. Isn't it interesting? Very, very interesting and very conceptual. So let us solve. First of all, we have to understand a concept which is very new and it is coming in Gauss's theorem first. Previously we were not thinking about it. We know the concept but we never thought about it, never required. But now it is required. What is that? Suppose, you see, there is a charge here, is Q1 on the surface of the first spherical boundary plate. So that charge, since we have another spherical boundary nearby having a charge Q2, so this will induction some amount of charge. What is the concept of induction? Induction means near end opposite polarity, far end is similar polarity. Okay, so there will be a near end which is here inside this second spherical boundary, and there will be another induction of plus Q1 on the other surface of the spherical boundary. Okay, good. So we have now know that not only Q2 but also the induction induced Q1 will reside on the second spherical boundary. Now we'll come to the third one, and eventually now you have understood that this Q1 will also have a Q1 here, and this Q2, since we have a boundary here which is having a charge of Q2 plus Q1, so what will be the total charge on the outer surface? It is Q2 plus Q1. Again, we are using the same concept of electrostatic induction. Okay, because these are non-conducting surfaces, so we can induce charges in this way. Alright. What happens to the negative charges which is within the spherical boundary inside? That I will explain you later, not in this lesson. Actually, what we do earthing so that the excess charge flows. Whatever inside charge is there, that flows. That will come. We'll discuss in later classes. Anyways, so now is the time to solve the problem. And how to solve? Surface charge densities are equal. Great. So I can write sigma is equal to, for the outer one, the last one. Okay, sorry. Q1, Q2, Q3 by surface charge density, total charge by surface area. And what is that? Surface area 4 pi r square, which is 3r. That is equal to Q1 plus Q2. The induced charge, this is induced, this is induced, this is induced. Sorry, these two are induced charges. This is induced charge. So this, for this surface it is this, and for the this one it is. And always remember, you may think that why this is not inducing this, because when we go inside a particular spherical boundary there is no electric field, and when there is no electric field it cannot induce. But this can induce the outer one because it can produce an electric field outside. Sure, you see so many concepts are there within one particular problem. That's why I chose this problem to make you understand the situation. Anyways, so this is the situation here. All these 4 pi. So let us take these two. Our problem is solved. You can understand now, because they have asked us to find out the ratio, not to find the individual magnitude of charges. They have just asked us to find out the ratio. 3 square is 9. The rest of the factors will, this r square will get cancelled. 4 pi is already gone. So next is Q1 plus Q2 by what will be 4. Alright. So if you cross multiply and those other things, 4Q1 plus 4Q2 plus 4Q3, these are all very silly calculations that you can even do it by yourself. I'm just showing this one, and then the next part you will do by yourself, and I will tell you the answer. And here, cancelling, what are getting cancelled? 4Q is not getting cancelled. 4Q3 will remain as it is. If I take everything that side, what I am getting? Sorry, this will be Q1. So 5 Q1 and 5 Q2. So 5 into Q1 plus Q2. This is your first expression. Now you can use these two. What is that? Q1 plus Q2 by what 4, it is equals to q1 by nothing. I mean, yeah, so q1 only. So what is coming? q1 plus q2 equals to 4q1. So q2 equals to 3 q1. Now you can replace this here, you can get another ratio. So in this way, you will finally get the ratio will be 1 is to 3 is to 5. This will be the answer to this problem. Okay, hope you have understood. And here is the completion of the chapter Gauss's theorem. I have done the things which is important for your board exam only. Later on, after finishing the next module, that is electric potential, I will do an extra class for doing the entrance based problems, as I do in the I did for the earlier classes also. Okay, so till then, bye bye. Stay safe. Use your extra time to do something productive and practice all this. Understand all this, and if you have any queries and all, I'll send you assignments in our Accentus WhatsApp group. There we'll again have a doubt clearing session, or maybe I'm trying to find out some other methods to interact with you directly. Okay, till then, bye bye.